Hello, everyone, and a very good evening to all of you. And thank you for joining us today for this virtual discussion on Empower Her, Women Leaders Share Their Journeys. My name is Garima Kalgutkar, and I am from IAMAI. I will be your host for this session today. Firstly, I would like to thank all of you for being present here today on a very special day. A very happy International Women's Day to all of you. Taking this opportunity, I would like to quickly give you a quick introduction about IAMAI. Internet and Mobile Association of India, or IAMAI, is a non-for-profit industry body with a complete gamut of digital services industry in India. We have over 450 Indian and multinational corporations as members from various segments for our sector-specific committees like digital transformation, digital advertising, edutech, fintech, gaming, among many others. In case you need any other additional information on how you can be a part of IAMAI and its initiatives, please do visit our website, www.iamai.in. With that, joining us today, we have an esteemed set of panelists. I would like to start off by introducing to you our esteemed moderator, Ms. Sneha Karwat, Director of Agency Development, Taboola. We welcome you, Sneha.
Thank you.
And of course, we have our esteemed panelists, Ms. Kalli Purie, Vice Chairperson, India Today Group. Welcome, Kalli. Ms. Monaz Todywalla, CEO, PhD Media. Welcome, Monaz. Ms. Priti Murthy, President, GroupM Services. Welcome, Priti. And Ms. Suparna Singh, President, NDTV Group. Welcome, Suparna. Thank you for joining us today. I would now like to invite Mr. Hanan Forgil, VP APAC Taboola, for a quick introduction about Taboola. Over to you, Hanan.
Thanks very much, Garima. Thank you to our audience today who have taken time out of your busy schedules to join us. And of course, thank you to our esteemed panelists whom without you, we couldn't have made this event successful. March is officially Women's History Month. And I think throughout this month, we celebrate the many economic, social, and political achievements of the women around the world. Today, we celebrate International Women's Day. People from across the globe will advocate for a gender equitable world. As VP of APAC at Taboola, I can tell you that gender equity is more than a woman's issue. It is a key aspect of our business. And in order to achieve our people mission to create a diverse, inclusive, ambitious environment where every Tabooler can discover and unleash their potential to achieve individual and collective success, we know that we must strive to represent society inclusive of women at all levels of the organization. I'm proud to say that 50% of the Taboola India business is women. Out of those, 40% of people managers are women. And while our efforts and many others move us closer to gender equity, our work is far from done. We have a responsibility collectively to empower women by creating more opportunity, inclusion, and belonging, not only on International Women's Day, but every day of the year, because when women thrive, companies thrive too. So once again, I would like to thank the esteemed panel of women leaders who have agreed to join us today. We very much appreciate the relationship that Taboola has with you. And I look forward to meeting you in person very soon. I will now introduce my dear colleague Sneha, Director of Agency Development at Taboola India, to take it forward. Thank you.
Wow. I mean, wow. Hanan, that was great. You have given all the right reasons to join Taboola now. So yes, I'm already so grateful and thankful to be part of this session today. Good afternoon to all our leaders and audiences listening us live. So for now, next 45 minutes, let's spend some time understanding how as women leaders, they rose up their ladder, challenges they faced, and how did she break the barriers. There will be two parts of this question. The first part where it will be focusing purely on the personal journey of each leader. And the second part wherein we would want to hear from them, learn from them, these leaders around the topic of this year's IWD Global Theme, #Break the Bias. To begin with, my first question is to Ms. Kalli Purie. Could you share with audiences one or two experiences that have shaped you as a leader?
So, there isn't one particular incident that stands out for me as something that may have shaped what I did. I think that the most important thing for me was that I just loved what I did, and I would do it if I wasn't paid and if I didn't have any other reason to do it. It's the place where I felt most comfortable, and it really gave me an adrenaline high. For some people, it's maybe a running or hobby or some other piece, but for me, being in the newsroom when news is breaking all around, and putting it out for viewers and users in any kind of platform is what gave me the high. So I think realizing that would have been an incident. It is maybe not an incident that you're looking for in terms of a gender specific issue, but it's definitely which made me realize that, look, this is what I want to do. And I think that that is one of the keys to leadership, or to being happy where you are, that you find something that you're really passionate about. If you're a clock watcher, you're coming to work and you're just watching the clock, okay, is it time for me to go home? Then, actually it's time for you to change your job. And that is, I think, one of the key formulas, I would say, to success or leadership. You've got to find your little niche.
Wow. But so you're trying to say that passion is something which really builds you in your career. But would there be still some incident which really took you back and made you feel that, this is different than just being in this position, but yet, an experience that could make people understand, what would be a turning point for a leadership role, maybe, probably?
I mean, nothing specific, but it is nice when you look around and, you have a bunch of people who are working with you and you are aligning with them. I think creating a team that aligns around the way you think, which doesn't mean that they all agree with you. That's not what I mean. But like, you've created a vibe, right? Where people are agreeing, disagreeing, but they're working together as a team to create something better. I think that that's always a turning point, and that, fortunately for news, happens very often. You're doing it on a daily basis when you put a magazine together and a cover comes together and you're like, wow, just changing that color from pink to blue just made all the difference. So the turning point comes more often than not. And, this has been an incredibly eventful news period for the last 2 years. We've just been dealing with unprecedented events where either it makes you or breaks you. So you could say that maybe in a way Corona was a turning point because it was so hard for all of us. And I realized that as a woman, maybe for the first time, that I had a real advantage here, right? Because I don't know, Priti, Suparna, Monaz, right? We tend to lead, or at least I do, a lot intuitively and with my gut. And in this time of Corona, you had to do that because you had no information. What were you basing it on? There was no preset model. There was no protocols. You were just going with your gut feel. Look, do I feel this is right for my organization? So, maybe Corona was a turning point as well, which kind of made me say that, women leaders and more women in positions of power are really important because their way of making decisions is different to how men work. I found that men leaders were a little bit at sea when they didn't have all the facts and all the information, everything put out for them. When they had to take that leap of faith, I think women did better.
I mean, I can't agree more to this. So, I mean, I would love to know more about this. Yet moving to Suparna Singh. So, Suparna, we would like to hear from you. What are your values? What do you represent? And what do you want to embody?
I'm lucky to have grown up in an organization which has always supported and promoted women. So NDTV was, I think, the first broadcast network in India to employ a woman camera operator. Similarly, we were the first company, I think, in our space to have a woman performing the role of Chief Revenue Officer. And we're quite unusual in how many women we have in key leadership positions. So I think that for me, growing up, and I started at NDTV nearly 30 years ago, so it was instilled in me from the beginning that there is nothing that you cannot do, right? Provided you're willing to put in the hard work. And this resonated completely with what I was hearing at home. So you asked about personal experiences, and my grandmother ran a hotel in Old Delhi back in the day. And the hotel industry, hospitality industry still remains very much a male-driven space. So growing up, I had this role model to look up to who was going off to manage, this sort of difficult space. My mother is a PhD in history. And, she always taught me that, again, shoot for the stars, and provided you're willing to do the hard work, things will be possible for you. So when I was asked to take over as NDTV CEO, and I was the first woman in India to be the CEO of a news company, the thing that was said to me at home, which reflected what I was hearing at work, was that you focus on work. And my family said, if it had been a man, he wouldn't have had to worry about, who's going to run the house and how are things going to be managed. So you just focus on doing the best possible job you can, and everything else will be in a way taken care of. So for me, those values are very, very important. And now that I am at the head of this organization, I think what I love watching is that value is intrinsic to everything we do. So I mentioned that we have women leaders in different key departments, and they all promote the next level of that, right? Making sure that the workplace is very, very secure and safe and rewarding for women. So in the last 4 or 5 years, we saw Me Too becoming, a big movement, rightly so. And I think that, it emphasized more and more that companies, particularly in India, the more that you focus on women's safety and security, and I don't just mean physically, but all around, the more that you can see growth, being accomplished very quickly. Quick, things to add to this, Kalli will certainly know this, that working in the news space, we keep unrealistic hours. It's graveyard shifts, the news cycle, is often busiest late at night. And so ensuring that women have safe transportation, are looked after in that way. We have a creche, at the office. So these are the values that I feel are very, very important to me and to, the organization that employs me. And I've seen firsthand the impact they can have on a woman's career.
I'm sorry, I'm jumping in, Sneha, just to add to something that Suparna said, right? What Suparna said about organizations, news ones, which have to basically ensure safety of women because they do graveyard shifts, etc. Now it's come to a point where they are insisting that opportunities, that they are just as good to be on war fronts. And, this has been a new frontier. So for example, right now, in Ukraine, I have 2 women reporters who are there. And, initially I was a bit hesitant to send them because I don't know what the situation is going to be there. And can I ensure the same safety for them there that I can in an environment here? But they insisted, and I got kick-ass comments back saying, excuse me, who do you think you are? And, they are not any better than us and we can do what they can do. And they are there. They are there on the war front doing those things. So, what Suparna is saying now has moved to a even different paradigm, etc., where they say that, don't in any way make special reservations for us. Even when you're trying to do something special for us, don't do it, because we're just as good and we can handle things, not just mentally, which we could always do, but also physically, right? That's where we try to protect women a little bit more still. And they feel that, they don't need that protection either anymore, which is fantastic, right?
And I think that is the culmination, that comes from when at the base of it, at the heart of it, you believe that you are in an environment which recognizes your value and is willing to give you room to grow. So if you didn't feel safe and secure in your base, at NDTV or wherever, you wouldn't have the confidence that, hey, if I'm out on the war front, I can deliver my best and I will be treated no different than a male colleague, which is pretty much all that women ask for, right?
Yeah, so I completely agree. I mean, women has always had power, and it is all about, making that's where, even Sadhguru says, let's have a society where women, or you rather say masculine and feminine, have an equal opportunity to play rather than trying to fit women in a men's world. So, I mean, it's great to know from all of you that we are all growing towards the same thought of mind, and soon we'll see where women and men has the same equal position in our industry, in our countries, and globally as well. So, Priti, I would love to hear from you, though we are still on the same question and same thought process. As a women leader, do you think that a women leaders can have it all?
You know,
Yeah, please, please.
strangely, I put out a post very instinctively today morning because there was a WhatsApp group discussion in my office leadership team that it's a gimmick and, it's a smooch of a day. We do this every year, nothing happens. I said, do you realize the fire we create in one day and how this fire becomes bonfires for another year? What initiatives begins today is what we need to see through it. And that is a video I put in on LinkedIn, and my sister put it that saying, "Dear Indranui, my sister has it all. You can have it all if you keep your mind focused on it." So, but I don't believe that. That's my sister's view of me. She's my elder sister. She's my darling. But that is her view of me. But it depends on how do you define all. And I think it is each one's own of how you define and how you encompass your life with the support system that allows you to define all.
Definitely.
Like lockdown, even I cooked. I am not a person who cooks, but I cooked, and I'm very proud of the fact that I did that. But is that something I define as all? Like I'm complete if I only cook in the kitchen and then wipe my son's butt and then also do, office? No, it isn't. It isn't. That is not priority for me. So I define my all. And then if I say I'm happy with it, then it is what I have and what I'm happy with. It's not a chase that I will benchmark against, say, Suparna or Kalli, because they are legendary in their own field. I will create my own legendary stories. They will create their own legendary stories. So I guess it depends on how you view all. I'm quite satisfied with what I have, but that doesn't mean I'm going to sit here and be happy about it. I will want more. So I know it's not a yes or no answer. It can't be. It shouldn't be. It's a wrong question, actually, in my mind. Not particularly coming from you. I think the journalist who asked Indra Nui also, I think it's a wrong question. Because there we are putting things in silos. We are slotting jobs for women that you have to have it all or not have it all. Why?
So Priti, great that you mentioned about Indra Nui. I would say for the fact this question has been asked to her as well, especially in context to the biological clock clicking in, right? Men doesn't have to really bother about when, if they are getting into a parental mode, or they don't really have to take a year break or a 2-year break, or just be where they are and continue to be consistent with that. But women do have to think, and women like you who have had such an intense ambition, just not an ambition, an intense ambition. How do you really manage it and balance it so well?
My family is going to laugh their ass off when they hear the word intense ambition, because they've never seen it in me. And I know Monaz knows my whole story, because Monaz and me have worked very closely. We've had kids around the same time. And I've taken tips from Monaz on how do you deal with not sleeping in the night and coming to office, Monaz. You create your circle. You create your circle. For me, I was a late bloomer. I'm a late bloomer all through my corporate life. I was a dreamer who had to take up a job. Otherwise, dad would have told me, get married. I had a boyfriend, so I had to do something. I took up a job. I did well. And then I realized, oh, Teri, I can do very well more. So let me go full horse. So, so this hierarchical definitions that we create around us, by this age you have to do this. I had my kid at 37 for whatever reasons. And I'm neither proud about it nor sad about it. I had when I had to have destiny, Baba. I mean, that is what it is. And at the same time, I have a crazy supporting husband. Why aren't we talking about him? Why isn't he in this forums? Like, he's WhatsApped me one whole thing about what Women's Day means to him. I'm like, post karna. Post it. Let there be a debate on these. But the point here being that definitions is what boggles us down. That is what I want to send back as a message, because I know many young girls or future leaders are watching it. Don't get slaughtered in definitions and labeling and, oh, men can do this. But I don't want to stand and pee. It's disgusting. Correct? It's the same way. I want to do it my way, in material of my gender and what feels comfortable to me. And I know there are a lot of jokes, oh, that man is taking care of the kid. It is seen as a appreciation. Men stretch long hours. It's seen as a norm, but women stretch long hours. Women complain. So don't put it under a label of gender. Don't put it under the label of capability. Put it under the label of excellence, put it under the label of defining average life. I don't want to be excellent. What if I want to be average tomorrow? Women should be, or men should be also okay with it. Sorry, I'm going a little.
No. I mean, this is a
language.
topic, this is such a subjective topic that we can all, I mean, go pouring our heart out.
No, not subjective. I'm seconding what Priti is saying totally. You know, it has to be based on individuals and capabilities. It's not about gender. I'm with you totally, Priti.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Coming from you means a lot.
Oh, bang on.
I do agree to a point that, you know, there is feminine in even, you know, male, and that femininity allows us to also, I mean, they are the one who supports us to grow, because without a support system, we can't do it all. So my next question is to Monaz. So Monaz, what career experiences, sorry, could sound like really not like the one it has, you know, the atmosphere is getting different over here. So what career experiences has given you the biggest lesson?
So I'll tell you what, more than experiences, I have learned a couple of things over my career, and thanks to colleagues like Priti and some really good mentors, both men and women. I think one of the biggest learnings that I've had is that don't overcompensate for being a woman. You are what you are, and be your authentic self. And just like Priti said, a lot of young girls have these false notions of what it means to be successful. And having it all, like you were asking, Priti, it is not about that here. It's about prioritization. I can tell you that today my biggest priority is my daughter's exam. I don't care if I have a pitch presentation or anything else. My big priority is today's one maths paper. I hope she's done it really well, because that's going to be my test of being a good mother in that sense. So I think that's the first lesson that I've had in my career. I think the second big lesson that I've had is that you don't need to man up. This is not a race of men versus women. This is a race of having the right allies who are going to help you in your journey, either personally or professionally. And I think that's the big thing. It's not about us versus them. It is about us. And like Priti said, it's about her husband being the big support system. Or in our cases, it could be great mentors that we had in our fathers, or even in our friends or professors or whatever it is. And I think the biggest lesson that I've learned in leadership specifically is that, boss, you don't have to be a man to succeed in a man's world. You define your own world, and success will come. So I think those are the two lessons. The one experience which I really wanted to call out, and I was reading a lot about what's happening right now on social media. This was during my first pregnancy. I used to work on Marico as a business. And I used to stay, I stay in town, and Marico's office was somewhere in Bandra. And then, I was leading the business. So it meant going to the office practically every day. And the roads were very bad. And it's amazing. I had a client who actually called up my boss and said, she's pregnant and I don't think she should be taking the road so often. So why don't, if you're okay with it, we'd like to have a 3-month secondment at Marico, where we'll give her a desk and she can work from Marico anyways, in that sense. The other big experience was that after I delivered, a lot of self-doubt on whether, I'll get the promotion, I won't get the promotion, will I be passed over, will I get the right opportunities? And I had a woman boss, and you won't believe it. The first thing I came back is when I got a promotion. So I told my boss, I wish I'd been pregnant more often, I would have got more promotions. I mean, jokingly, of course, but what I'm trying to say is that look, you have to show up for other women, and men have to create those opportunities just as much as women have to create opportunities to ensure that we succeed as a society, because inclusivity sees a lot more benefits than, like Priti mentioned, of being in silos. So I think those are just some of my career experiences, which I will always treasure in that sense.
I totally agree to it. And think that, all of you mentioned about being passionate, ambition, focus, and not trying to be men, rather be yourself, and, more power to women always then in that case. So again, to Kalli, Purie, as a woman leader, what tips do you have for women to be able to be present in a room full of men? What's your thought around it?
So, again, in a lot of board meetings, and a lot of other meetings, I tend to be very often the only woman, and you just have to forget that you're a woman. You're an individual and you're out there representing your company and doing what you need to. It's only when you think about it and say, oh, I'm in a room full of men, that, you know, you may think about it, but otherwise you just are in a room full of very capable people. This happened to me even in, you know, in university. I went back to an executive education course recently in Harvard, and there were 10 women in a bunch of, you know, 150 CEOs. So the women had to really come together because the men there were not necessarily used to dealing with women in positions of power. They were used to dealing with women who could, you know, report into them, but not necessarily speak to them as equals. So one of the big learnings there for me, and which I want to share since you're asking me for some tips, is that, you know, stand up for yourself. Very often you may think that you're an equal, and in your head, you are not applying a gender filter, but the other side may be. So you may need to push back much more than you normally have to, right? And the second thing I find a lot, even women in my own team don't do it, is they don't ask. You know, they don't ask for promotions. They don't ask for that extra salary. They don't ask for this extra job. They don't basically step up. And so very often I have to tell them, look, step up. Why didn't you ask for this? No, I thought that you would see it. If I had really done a good job, you would have seen it. I was like, no, your male counterpart will make sure that I have seen it. They will send me 20 messages. Do you know what a great job I did? I did this, I did that, blah, blah. Why are you not doing the same? And women tend to want to be discovered for some reason. I don't know why, right? Yes. So the other tip is that, you know, speak up for what work you have done. Don't be shy about it. There's no need to be shy. This is a workspace, right? And you should speak up for what you want. Third thing, women feel very conscious about asking for help. I think they feel that, oh, you know, exactly what you said, Monaz, right? After you came back from pregnancy, you were worried. Would people judge you that you'd been away? Would you not get a promotion, etc.? Instead of saying, hey, I'm here for you and I'm going to do the work, and just support me and I'll be able to do all those things that you need me to do, and even better, right? Women are very sort of scared about asking for help. And that goes to not just when they're going through having a baby, but for anything related to work, that, you know, this is overwhelming me. I can't handle this. You know, cry out for help. They don't do that. Men always do that. So
you think this is reason that, you know, women do have confidence, but they work from heart and they want that people to just see it, that they have really done the best job over here. Is this because of that, or it's generally that women, like you said, they just want to be discovered?
I don't know what it is. I think it, to a certain extent, maybe it's some sort of conditioning, deep conditioning that comes. I'm not sure what the reason is, because I know there are times that I can do the same myself, where I don't ask for something, right? Where I believe that I deserve it, but I don't ask for it. I don't know why, because you feel somebody will feel bad, or, you know, maybe don't upset the apple cart. I don't know what the real reason is. Maybe Priti, Monaz, Suparna, maybe you have a reason of why we do that. Why do we not step up and ask for what is our right? You know, why are we so a little bit shy about it? Anyone want to contribute? Help me out here.
You know,
help a sister out.
I was reading this study done for Lean Organization, where how the women don't put up their hand up or ask because they believe they're still not ready. Whereas men tend to ask, even though they're not ready, with the thought that I'll pick it up there. Whereas women want to be ready for the job, 100%. And they believe they might be 100% ready, but they believe it's only 20%. This is a research document. So this is one of the primary reasons why women don't tend to put their hand up. And this is something I say, that ask and you shall, and if you fail, you shall be forgiven. It's just an organization. You're not a doctor killing anybody's life. I mean, we're just working the corporate world, and that too in advertising and marketing and all that. So it's okay. I mean, just say and put your hand up, but this is the fact, Kalli. This is the reason why women don't put up their hands.
I think this.
Sneha, sorry, before you switch from me and ask one of the other women on this panel a question, the last thing I want to say as a tip, and Priti and Monaz both sort of referred to it, and even Suparna did, that find a champion. Very often, I think women need a champion. Priti has an elder sister Monaz had a woman boss.
Mentor.
Suparna mentioned the
And my
NDTV
husband.
culture, right?
And my husband.
Okay, and your husband, right? Women need to find, I think, sometimes a champion. So you should look out for that champion who then believes in you. And very often when you're having those self-doubts, right, is able to reassure you and say, hey, you can do this. You can do this, and men always seem to have that. They seem to have this whole group of like cult around them, like cheerleaders, right? Women tend to have just that one champion. And I think we need to find that one champion. And when you find them, just hold on to them. I think that's really important in your flight, and in achieving the goals that you want to. Sorry, Sneha, back to you.
No, I'm so happy to hear that it's about having a pillar or a strength that you're talking about for women. I take it that way, at least. And I feel that this year theme should have been like, women can change the world rather than #break the bias, because the way you guys are coming across and the way I see it and hear it from you, it's completely more than breaking the bias. It's about more education and changing it differently, much more differently. So, Suparna, this question is for you. With the theme #break the bias, what in your opinion are some of the misconceptions and prejudices that people have about women at workplace? And what do you think that we can help to combat this?
So I'm so glad you asked that, because I was hoping to be able to refer to it organically anyway, right? I think one of the biggest stereotypes is that women look for opportunities to take each other down. And actually what I found at NDTV is that, and actually outside of NDTV for sure as well, is that women love supporting each other. We tend to reach out to each other much more for advice, help. And this, this stereotype of there's a cat fight about whether it's about promotion or airtime or whatever, I've never experienced that. And I know I'm lucky because I work in the media space, which in India in particular is very, very women-centric. So I'm sure it's a different story in a more conservative space like banking, for example, right? But for us, I've always found, even when I was promoted from within a group of peers, which could have not gone great, because there can be rivalries and so on, my peers, and I have to emphasize, male and female, were just so supportive. So there was never this sense of I have to take somebody down in order to get ahead. And I think one of the other important things, somebody referred to it at the beginning, it might have been Priti, is that why isn't there a man on this banner? Women's Day, which is meant to recognize women's achievements, etc. We're not operating in an echo chamber where 50% of the population is telling itself, you're great, you're great. This is a day, where everybody should be looking at women. And I have to say again that in my career within NDTV and outside NDTV, but particularly within NDTV, some of my closest confidants are men. I work with, as a management team of 3 people, and the 2 people who are my co-collaborators, co-conspirators, whatever, they have never ever once made me feel that my gender is either an asset or a liability. And I think that's the ideal position that you want to find yourself in, where you are in a sense gender neutral, and then you really are operating in a matrix of meritocracy, right? So these 2 colleagues that I mentioned, they are both men. We all hang together, we brainstorm together, and it couldn't be a more supportive, open, communicative group. That's breaking many stereotypes, because it requires men to be open and communicative, which men are often not considered to be, right? And the fact that I'm comfortable interacting with them at all levels, personal, professional, whatever, right? And so therefore that shatters the stereotype, hopefully, of women being somewhat reserved or being tenacious in presenting themselves, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think it's very important to include men in these conversations. The other point is that, referring to what Kalli said earlier about, finding a champion, or whether it's women wanting to be discovered or not, it's also incumbent upon all of us who are in certain positions to therefore look out, right, for the next generation, and to spot young women who are energetic, keen, talented, for sure. And rather than them having to seek a mentor, kind of just be available and say, I got you. So whatever you need, I'm here for it. You don't have to go hunting for it far and wide. And I do see this to a large extent, again, across the media space, in India. And like I said, because there are so many women in the media, I find even across organizations, we tend to consult each other much, much more. I think Monaz made the point, about why do you need to, downplay your femininity in a way, and actually we shouldn't look at it as masculinity or something else. But if there is a certain element of femininity to the way that you handle your position or your role, it should be considered something worth playing up rather than how do I disguise this or suppress it. Kalli mentioned, how we operated during the pandemic, and it was extremely difficult. All of us know, we work in large organizations, and there was a certain empathy that you can call it intuitive, instinctual, biological, maternal, whatever it was, right? But the way that we handled each person, at one time during Omicron, we had 83 concurrent cases. And being media organizations, we cannot shut down. We are essential services. We cannot do work from home. Our systems, for broadcast mean you have to be in a studio. And the way that I saw women handling corona cases, colleagues, right? I do not think that men in equivalent positions could have done that job. Equally though, for me to be able to do that, I needed the support and the cooperation of both male and female colleagues. And so I think that these are certain points, that for me, it's very important to say, I don't want to tone down, quote unquote, my womanhood when I'm in a meeting, just as I'm not going to play it up either. And, somebody else, I think maybe it was Priti made the point of, you could be in a meeting and sometimes you're not aware of your gender, but you realize how other people are. And I think that's when your colleagues, your peers play a huge role because as an example, we deal a lot with telecoms, right? And telecoms are largely male skewed. And so no matter what your designation is or how you're introduced, if I go with a team of people which includes men, the men on the other side of the table in that particular space will tend to make eye contact and look for decisions to the men on my side of the table, right? Therefore, it's incumbent at that time for my colleagues to make sure that I am included and pushed forward. So they will make it very clear that, we are here as part of this team and this team is led by Suparna. Again, the point I'm trying to make is that it has to be an integrated effort like this. It has to be a matrix. We can't say men are on this side and women are on this side and we're having a conversation about Women's Day and there's no men, who are listening or in fact giving their opinions because they're very heavily impacted by this.
Absolutely. So, keeping that in mind, Priti would want to hear from you this topic. Women in workplace discussion only involves women. What can we do so that, both men and women can equally participate in this conversation?
I think, this question to me would have hold true 7-8 years back. I don't think it's only a women thing anymore. We are not getting nail paint and sparse treatment in offices on Women's Day. We are having serious discussions on career progressions, and men are equally part. Monaz is laughing because there's a past to our life on this, and such situations where I've rebelled. And I said, I don't want to nail paint. I want to talk about if there is a bias, let's sit and call out the bias. But the good part is that is over. Most organizations are sensible enough to make it a real day, which is not about flower. And I mean, I love a nail paint and I love a spa, besides that, but not in my workplace. And I think men are involved. They are equally involved. We have a management team of expo who's equally involved, who are wishing each other and celebrating us. And I think it is about those men who are not talking about it. Please come and talk. Because if they're feeling shy or wondering why only Women Day, why not International Men Day? Because guys, you had a heads up, of 100 years. We are 100 years behind. So give us that benefit of doubt is all I will say. But they are doing. I have a wonderful team of main members who are organizing stuff, who are allowing, they lobby with me to allow flexibility for women because they've had a baby, we should not call them to office. So they are doing those conversations, and that's what matters. What the question we need to steer into in the next year panel discussions is actually not how do we get men involved. We just need to get men in these discussions here, in these rooms. along with us and hear them out, because it is now moving into a diversity challenge, not just a women's challenge. There are other diversity challenges. Small town guy versus a metro groomed guy, a badge IIM or a ISB or a Harvard pass out versus Nagpur pass out like me, Nagpur University pass out like me. Those are the diversity challenges. So let's bring those issues out and make also that important. But that will have another era. Pehle to women issues solve karte. So let's work on that and let's work towards building that rapport with men. I think senior level men are getting it. The entry level men will get it because they're currently in their 20s and they're born in a different generation with a different ecosystem at their house, unlike us, who are in their 40s and their 50s and their 60s. We've seen a different generation at home versus the current generation. So that blending is happening, Sneha, and I hope that we see that transition by next year, where I'm in another panel discussion, hopefully with these women. I would love that. But where I'm talking about, of course, it's not a no-brainer. Today, we are moving away from this, and this is what we are doing. I think that is what will matter to me.
I can just jump in very quickly. I also wanted to say, what companies are changing, and in some of our cases, companies have been very, very women-centric, from earlier on. But across India, there is an attempt to sort of give women their due, right? I think where a bigger change needs to be seen is at the board level. And this is from talking to many, many women leaders, that while within the company, there can be a lot of support for women, boards still tend to be, a sort of boys club, old boys club. And even the ones that aren't, I do believe treat men versus women differently. And so, I think Priti just talked about people at the entry level, men at the entry level, and maybe they need to evolve or be coached in a sense. I think this is equally true for the very, very top, right, for boards, because in many ways the direction that companies follow comes from there. And like I said, it's not my experience, but in talking to many women leaders, we find that while our companies work with us, boards can tend to be still quite prejudiced or biased in favor of men.
Good point. And I guess that when I'm working GroupM, I don't see that bias. And I've seen, this is my second stint at GroupM. I've seen another era and I'm seeing this era. So there is a transition in the last 5 years that I can definitely see, not just in GroupM, and across organizations that I've worked across, or friends in other organizations. So the boardroom is aware of it. The boardroom is working on it. They're getting more women leaders on the board. They're getting more women leaders promoted to the board for their capabilities. And mind you, I'm adding that as an adjective and an addendum, that for their capabilities that they bring in, not because they're just a woman.
So I want to just add, sorry, Sneha, I want to add something to what Priti and Suparna both have said, right? About boards. And you're right that, boards need to have more women representation, because that's where a lot of the policy or big ideas, etc., are coming from. But, equally, I've lost my, oh yeah, I remembered. What happens is that a lot of official work happens in a board where you will be treated as an equal. And then there'll be, okay, a little boys club, let's go for drinks. Where it becomes a little bit difficult, right? I find then I'm not able to see myself as just an individual. I'm not able to participate in the boys club where they're going out drinking, and maybe they need their own time as well, right? But then I don't have anyone necessarily in the boardroom to go for, like, okay, let's go for a girly drink, so to say.
High tea, or a high tea with
Kalli. I'll go with you, Kalli, for a girly.
Same here.
Kalli, I'll go with you for high tea.
So I just wanted to put that out there, that is one of the things that becomes really hard, and a lot of decision making and agreements and alliances do happen over those informal drinks in which we are not yet included. And I'm not saying that the boys are excluding us, but I don't know, at least I'm not feeling totally comfortable yet to be part of that. I wanted your opinion on what do you three think? What could we do about that?
So with you and Kalli, what I've done to comfort myself of this boy drinking club in the night, because I anyway not a night person, so forget going out in the night, is I have my coffee girl gang. And I have a large gang. I have a large gang where we either have a coffee or an early drink or something so that we can go home on time. that becomes of such a big priority for them. And I guess creating those clubs and creating those pods or those clusters of women who support each other become important. A lot of times men walk up to me and saying, what is this exclusive women club? Why you're not including men? I said, most welcome, but our slots are these. We don't do 6, 7 in the night or 10 in the night. We do like 4 in the evening. So most welcome for a 30 minutes. We'll talk menopause, we'll talk PMS, we'll talk husband issues, maid issues. Be ready to contribute. You cannot say kya problems. And then we'll discuss work too. So welcome to this gang and this side of the world. I guess we need to have call out, and my learning is we need to call it out and have more discussions around it and say that, I don't do drinking in the night. What else can we do where I can sit with you and, have a lighter conversation too?
So I'm looking forward to this invitation now, Priti. Huh?
Done.
Better be invited to
You're
this
doing
coffee
drinks
club.
with me, coffee with me, so you have a busy social schedule now. But,
Most
I
happy.
telecoms earlier, and Kalli talked about, sometimes when these big business meetings take place, it is true that as a woman you can find yourself sort of excluded inadvertently. Nobody means to. But I did want to point out that there are also companies, and I'm not just saying this because Taboola is associated with this particular discussion, but I have worked so closely with them for nearly 10 years now, and many of our biggest and most important discussions have been held over meals, over drinks, and from top to bottom. Their team has never in any part of the world, and I've met them in Tel Aviv, New York, London, wherever, Delhi, never have I felt excluded. There has always been a complete recognition and respect of me as an individual and what I'm bringing to the table. And I have seen that both at their, at their official events and at their unofficial events. And Taboola has many men in positions of top leadership, Hanan, you know this. And if they can manage it, to make me feel so at home, and show me such professional courtesy and respect, I'm sure that other companies can. And I think this is the point that Priti was making earlier, which is that there is a transition, it is in effect, but, there's a saying, as the world turns, it turns so slowly. And so somebody else mentioned that, we're 100 years behind where men are, and we just like for that change to happen a little bit faster now. It's, it's been long in the coming. And again, I think working with companies like Taboola shows it is absolutely possible, even in a firm that is run by a very impressive and very, decisive men.
Maybe my question should be not that, how can we involve more men in the conversation, but how we can have after drinks with them, or, after coffee with them.
So I'm going to just to say something. First of all, I couldn't agree with you more about having more men in the conversation. And I take it as feedback above the stage. Really, I think it's very important, and it is certainly not beside the point. It's very much is the point. I think that what we were saying right now about the informalities of relationships, whether they are inside the business or outside the business, for me that conversation spans beyond a gender conversation, and that speaks to our diversity, equity, and inclusion policy, and to the principles of making sure that everybody is included, regardless of any definition that you may go by, and that it's a deliberate effort from everybody's side, and certainly for leaders, both yourselves, myself, across the board, to set the tone for that. So I totally buy into it, and I think that we as large organizations, certainly some organizations larger than others, but as large organizations working in this space, I believe that the industry looks to us to see how we lead the way in this, and we have a responsibility not only from a gender perspective but far beyond to help and drive these messages throughout the ecosystem in market and certainly internationally as well.
Thanks, Hanan.
Wonderful.
So Monaz, what barriers have you faced as a women leader, and how did you overcome this? What advice do you have for women facing similar barriers, if in case?
I'll be very honest. My journey in leadership has not been as tough. The reason is that I've been very, very lucky to not actually encounter more biases, in the external environment. But there's one thing that stands out for me as an experience, and it's more a personal bias that I had, and I wanted to share that. I was in mid-management, and for some strange reason, I thought being a leader was being nice to people. And because I was a woman, it was expected of me to be nice to people. And I had a male boss who I used to report to. And he knew my performance was like exemplary, but somewhere the team wasn't sort of delivering on the same performance. And I remember once he pulling me aside, and this was particularly after a very bad client meeting. I think I was going to get sacked. I literally thought that after that meeting. But he pulled me aside and he said, there is nothing wrong in demanding the highest professional standards from your team and also being empathetic. And I think in my head, I mistook empathy for being nice and therefore not demanding the same professional standard as I had from myself. And I think it's been my biggest learning as a leader. And I think my only sort of advice or tip or whatever you would like to call it would be to young leaders, men or women, is that you must do what is right by your business, but also at the same time you must maintain empathy, because finally we are in the people business, and that's the engine that's going to get us growth. So that's just my one bit of tip that I've learned and the barrier that I've overcome.
Great to have a kind of piece of advice from all of you. Something very important which Kalli did mention is that, also if you don't ask, it will always be no, which is like engraved in my head already. And empathizing is also very important. And Priti, like you mentioned that it's not about men and women, but it's about, having that one person who can be your support system. So, while we build this through and move towards this ladder up and growing, it's important to consider all of this. But yet we would want to hear more from you. And before we wrap up, I would love to know from all of you a piece of advice, additional piece of advice rather, to our audiences who's watching us. So would love to start with Ms. Suparna.
I think two things. One is to just believe in yourself and put in the hard work, right? Because the expectation can't be that I believe in myself to the extent that I don't need to do the work. And, the world should just be grateful that here I am, a smart person. So to work really, really, really hard. And I guess the other point, would be to surround yourself with a support system that includes people of all sorts. I think every member of this panel, including Hanan, has mentioned the importance of treating people without any filters. And so if we as women leaders, and again, I'm a bit uncomfortable with this term of leaders because I don't really know what it means, right? It seems like we have all the answers, and I know I certainly don't. I'm still very much groping for them. But I think that, if we don't treat our group, our tribe, as gender neutral, then we can't expand that to the workplace and to the world in general, right? So I want to be able to confide in and get advice from my male colleagues as much as from my female colleagues, and I want to be there for both in equal amounts. And the other thing I think that, we've all touched on briefly is to not feel compelled to somehow tamp down what makes us women. We don't have to be ashamed by it. We don't have to be embarrassed by it. Monaz gave that exemplary story. It really, really resonated about being told, likability is one thing, but you don't have to sort of tone down your decision making or your expectations of your team because of likability. And there's that thing about how men's decisions are strategic, but women's are calculated, or that men react and women overreact, right? And so I think those are the corrections that we want to see happening at an exponential pace. There's been enough time spent now on, we're getting there. And now, it's time to really sort of walk the talk on that. And I have learned so much from listening to everybody on this panel. And I look forward to Priti setting up that coffee, and very happy to do mani-pedi as well, by the way.
I'm so in now.
Right? And to drinks with Kalli, and to many, many more lovely meetings with the wonderful and very respectful team of Taboola. So thank you to all of you.
Over to you, Monaz.
Well, I think the only thing that I would sort of leave behind is the thing that I think women should embrace their self-worth. And I would say their whole worth, and let that guide them into realizing who they are. Stop the Mother India complex. Yeah, you can't do everything. So let's just choose, let's prioritize, and show them what we've got. That's all I would say.
Yeah, Priti, from you.
I think say your ambition, say it aloud, be vocal. I think this is an important mental shift that women need to stay relevant in any business. So even if I'm doing a home baking thing, you need to talk about your home baking. Even if I'm a homemaker, if I'm a steno, typist, EA, whatever you can label yourself as in your professional life, stay vocal, talk about it. I think the more you talk, and I think increasingly we are talking a lot, which I love it, but more such vocal conversations of being bold and asking for what you want is an important element of professional life that one should have to be a successful professional, immaterial of the gender.
Great. And Kalli, from you.
Suparna, I want to add to your list. Men are decisive, women are bossy. And men are passionate and women are emotional. Also, I want to just leave one thought with a lot of women who might also be on this call, or other leaders who might be on this call. I find that women especially, and maybe male leaders as well, don't take enough time for self-care. And when it is time for compromising something, it's always compromising with yourself, right? And women tend to do that much more. Okay, I won't do my particular piece, which is important for my nourishment or my recuperation or my recovery, but I will go ahead and do this for either my child or for my team or for my mother-in-law or for my husband or whatever it is. So I'd like to leave behind that anyone who is listening to this, that create something which is called NNT, non-negotiable time, every single day, right? Which is, this is my NNT, 10 minutes in the day, and this is what I'm going to do. So, nothing comes between that, and you put it out there. Otherwise, we find ourselves very ragged, right? And we're just like working ourselves to the bone. And then finally we're like, help, and it's too late, really, So it's really important to do that. And women especially must look after themselves, right? Because nobody else is going to do it for you. So you have to do it for yourself.
Super point, Kalli. Super.
Can't agree more again to this. So thank you so much, all of you, for your time. And since this discussion was very insightful for me, and I'm surely for all the audiences watching out there, I would hand over this conversation to Garima now.
Thank you so much, Sneha. Thank you so much to all our panelists. I think personally, this has been such an enlightening experience listening to all of you women leaders, and so insightful, full of learnings. And we all, I'm sure, have taken a lot of takeaways from this. We hope all of you enjoyed being a part of it. And on behalf of Team IAMAI, I would like to thank the moderator and our esteemed set of panelists for taking time out today. I would also like to thank the Taboola team for their faith in us. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all from us. Thank you, and please do stay safe. Thank you. Have a great
Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.